Welcome to Talk Travel with Heather Tate, North Mississippi's podcast for savvy travelers. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is a weekly podcast that airs every Monday on the Shark 102.3 FM radio station based in Ripley, Mississippi, and is then released as a podcast. Travel advisor and travel enthusiast Heather Tate of Whimsical Destinations gives listeners expert travel tips curated through the years of personal and professional experience. By clicking subscribe, you'll have a new travel tip to add to your collection delivered to your podcast library every Monday. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is brought to you by Sun Bear Studio. Sun Bear Studio is a boutique recording studio in the heart of Ripley, Mississippi. When you record with us at Sun Bear Studio, we can mix, master, register, and publish your music, your podcast, or your family story. Email us when you're ready at sunbear@jc.media.
This program was recorded at Sun Bear Studio in Ripley, Mississippi.
Good morning, Northeast Mississippi travelers. This is Heather with Talk Travel with Heather Tate, and I'm so excited to share my adventures and tried and true tips with you, whether you are also a seasoned traveler, a hopeful traveler, or currently an armchair traveler, meaning you're going to follow along with us from home for now. This is our 145th episode of Talk Travel with Heather Tate. This week, we're going to talk all about trusted traveler programs. If you have no idea what I mean by that, then this is the episode for you. Now, some of my episodes I find are really fun, or I think they're fun, and I hope you do too. And they're informative. I tell you about experiences we've had. I tell you about new destinations, both near and far. Others I feel like are informative in this is some housekeeping things that you just really need to know. And this is going to be one of those weeks. So this is the type of week, this episode is one that I really wish I had my husband Logan in here with me so I could do a Q&A and ask him the questions, because this is the area he really shines. I would say the boring but necessary parts. That's where he really shines. He's in IT, if you get my drift. But this is going to be very helpful because I will be honest, there are things that I learned through this process. We just received and were approved for Global Passport, my entire family. And as much as we travel, you would think, oh, they should have had that for years, but we just hadn't gone through the process. So I'm going to walk you through it, what we did. I want to start off by saying you want to go to the official website because some of this information can change. When we received our Global Passport, it was $100 per person. The very next week, it was going up to $120 per person. Now, it's good for 5 years, but there was an increase in pricing. So you want to make sure that you're getting the most recent information, that the application sites where you're going for your interviews, for the applications, that they are still active sites, the enrollment centers. So you want to make sure you're getting the most up-to-date information. We will have the official website for Trusted Traveler Programs. We will have that in the show notes, and I will also post it on our Facebook group, Heather and Logan Tate, Whimsical Destinations. So how do you fly through the airport, both when you arrive and when you leave, with ease? Have you ever been to the airport and you saw people getting in these special lines and you tried to go get in them because they looked shorter and you were asked, do you have mobile passport? You're like, no. Do you have global passport? You're like, no, I don't know what that is. And if the answer was no, I don't know what that is, that means you didn't have it. So you had to go to the long line. Or TSA pre-check. When you arrive at the airport and you're like, oh, I want to go in that short line, but you don't have the TSA pre-check. How do you get that? What are the steps? So we're going to compare the major trusted traveler programs. And really, there are a few more than these. There's Nexus, there's a few more. But these are the three I really want you to know about. What are the differences? What are the costs? How do you set about getting an application? And when do you use them when you're in the airport? Because some are for arrival, some are for when you come back home and you're going through customs. Okay, so we're going to see which one fits your travel needs the best. And then I'm going to share my family's recent experience maintaining or achieving approval for global entry. There's a little bit of a funny story there, so hang with me through this part of the information overload, and we'll get to that. So first off, let's start with mobile passport control. What is a mobile passport? There's a mobile passport control app, and here's what I'm going to start with. Everybody can get this. It is completely free. It is just an app. I've used it many times myself. A lot of participating airports already have this, so you don't have to go through any application process for this, something you have to do ahead of time. You just want to download the mobile passport control app on your phone. It's free. Like I said, no application is needed, only at participating airports in the U.S., but there are several, and that helps you to expedite re-entry through customs. So if you do not allow yourself at least 3 hours on a return from out of the country, and you're landing in your first airport within the U.S., maybe it's Atlanta, maybe it's JFK, Miami, Charlotte, maybe it's Dallas. You're arriving in one of these major airports because that's where you're flying back into your home country in the U.S., and you don't have anything else. You want to make sure you download this mobile passport control. It is going to help you expedite your re-entry through the customs. So it involves you upload your passports, take your pics. So then this way you don't have to go through and actually talk to and do all of this process in the line where you're talking to an agent. Right, the customs agent. You're kind of like getting that out of the way ahead of time. So when you land back in the U.S., that's when you can say, I have arrived. You let them know what your gate is, what concourse you're in the airport. You can have your passports already uploaded, but that's when it's going to ask you to take your pic. So you take your picture. You're going to answer some customs questions, like making sure you didn't bring anything in that you shouldn't have. Looking at you, Logan, and that apple. If you know the story, it came back to bite us, or at least him, later today. I'll tell you about that. You get in a separate, shorter line. This is great for families, as only one member in the household needs to submit. It's not a trusted traveler program like the other two, and no background check is needed. So definitely, if nothing else, make sure you know about mobile passport control. TSA PreCheck. It is a trusted traveler program. I'm going to be honest, until I got global entry, I never had TSA PreCheck. I just didn't do it. Why? Because I'm going to have to go through the process of going to one of these locations, one of the 650 enrollment centers, which we don't have any in Tupelo, Mississippi. Do we have some in Mississippi? Yes. Jackson. I think Vicksburg. I think there's somewhere else in the Delta, but there's nowhere near us. They're all in, Memphis, Tennessee. There's going to be some in Birmingham. There's lots of different places, some that are not far from us, but you're still going to have to go and have your application there. So it was just not something that was on my list where I just had to do. This helps you to expedite when you're going through security before a flight. So not when you're arriving back home in the U.S., like for an international flight. This is excellent for both domestic trips and international when you're leaving, when you're on your way to your trip. So it expedites the traveler screening process. No need to remove your shoes. That's fantastic, right? I hate having to take my shoes off, and if I'm either barefoot, which you don't want to be barefoot in an airport, but sometimes I am because I'm wearing my sandals or my flip-flops or nicer shoes. You don't have to take off belts. You don't have to separate your liquids and show them, or even your light jackets. Not like a heavy parka, you're going to still have to take that off. But your light cardigans and jackets, you can keep those on. An application is required, but the estimated processing time is very quick, 3 to 5 days on average, max of 60 days, 90% approval. There's 650 enrollment centers, and it only starts at $76, around $76 per person. Also, a perk of this is the adults need to get it, but children 17 and under can join their parent with it. The closest office that I found for this is a Collierville Office Depot, so in Tennessee, but that's the closest to us. And it's not a very intensive process. You complete the application, you're approved, you go, you get your picture, and then you're able to receive it. So it's not as intense as the global entry, which will be the next one. So over 290 airports support TSA PreCheck. And there's different types of TSA PreCheck that you can learn all about when you look at the website that I'm going to post for you. There's Clear and there's some other ones. Now, one thing that you want to keep in mind is when you're returning, if you have some of these, look at which line is best, because just because you have it doesn't mean you have to use it. If the regular line just happens to be better, a lot of people now have Clear, and sometimes that line is as long, if not longer, than the regular line at customs on the return. So definitely beneficial on your way there. but it is not as beneficial sometimes on your way back if all you have is the clear and you don't have global entry. You will receive a KTN, which is a known traveler number, and you'll attach that to every one of your bookings that you make directly through the airline login, their app, or on their website. And it's a very easy online renewal that is like instant, and it'll be something that every 5 years you can just renew and you keep getting. So that is the bulk of what we're going to talk about for mobile passport and TSA PreCheck, but I didn't have enough time to get to the big one yet, which is global entry. That is why you're going to want to tune in to the rest of this as a podcast. And that'll be the extended version. Wherever you're going this week, whatever you're doing, I hope you have a great adventure. Because remember, life is short. Take the trip. Make those memories with your family. You won't regret it. And make sure you join our Facebook group so you can see more ways where you can travel. Have a great week.
Here we go.
All right, we are back, and I promised you that we would finish talking about the Trusted Traveler programs, and I'm going to finish with global entry. We just did not have time to get into the radio portion of this episode, and it's so important I did not want to rush it and try to condense it. So with global entry, it is like you automatically also get TSA PreCheck. So it is just a step above. Now, we talked about how TSA PreCheck does require an application. You submit it, and its approval rate is much quicker. 3 to 5 days on average, max of 60 days. Global entry can take some time, and it is best if you are traveling 4 or more times a year. Now, if TSA PreCheck can be for anyone, that's something you can do. If you're like, we take a trip a year, we want to have TSA PreCheck, then yes. Mobile passport for anyone. Global entry is recommended if you take at least, 4 trips a year. We do. We just have been neglecting getting it before now because we didn't know how many hoops we were going to have to jump through and if it will be worth it. Well, I can tell you, at the time you're listening to this, I will have used our global entry for the very first time. So I'll add some of my personal experiences on our Facebook group to let you know what it felt like to actually get to use it. But if you're, like I said, taking at least 4 trips per year, it's worth it. It's valid for 5 years, and that means counting starting with your next birthday. So really, you're getting 5 years plus however many months to your next birthday. So you can get more than a strict 5 years. And I didn't know that either. So Logan said that it would be a great thing to do if you were getting approved like right after your birthday, right after your birth month, then you're getting almost a whole nother full year. But it's a minimum then of 5 full years that it's going to be valid. Now, it takes about 2 weeks to become conditionally approved. If there's some things that don't check off, or they're like, okay, we're going to have to move to a manual approval, that can take months. And it did. So for me, our family of 4, my husband Logan, our 2 boys who are 12 and 8, we all applied the same time. I was conditionally approved within 2 weeks, and I traveled the most in the family. Logan was approved about 2 to 3 months after we applied, and the boys 5 months later had still not been approved. And it can take, and I thought this was a really long time, 12 to 24 months to get a conditional approval. Well, fortunately, we did not have to wait that long. I was hoping we all would be within a couple of months because we really wanted it for our big trip this summer, which is to Croatia. That is what we were hoping to have it for, because that's our next big international trip where we're going to Europe. And so about 5 months, when Logan had still not received the conditional approvals for London and Christian, he just went to the frequently asked questions on the website that I'm going to post for you. And he sent an email because it gives some information like for a customer support and to contact us, and just asked, if it was normal to take longer for the kids than the adults, because we had already been approved, so we were just waiting for the rest of our family to be approved. And then he got a generic response back saying, these are individually, monitored, manually approved, and we don't know when it'll be approved. The very next day, they were both approved. So you could say it was a coincidence. I think that maybe sending that email at the 5-month mark was helpful. So at that point, then we could log in to our account and we could pick where we wanted to go for our interview. That's right, we were going to have an interview. Now, this is the most important thing. Tell the truth, the whole truth on your application and in your interview. There are people who are denied every day for global entry, and we were told by the Customs and Border Patrol agent that if you ever lose your global entry, you cannot get it back. So it is very important when they say, how many countries have you visited in the last 5 years, to name every one of them. And maybe if you forgot one, when you get to your interview, go ahead and say, I forgot to mention, this country or this country, because maybe you visited on a cruise and you forgot to mention some of the ports of call. Mention everything, because you can be denied if you're not honest in your interview. So you could only pick slots for 2 at a time. We picked them back to back, and they're only 10-minute interviews, so it wasn't going to be like an all-day process. We went to the Memphis airport. We got the very first one we could in the morning, and we did them back to back, 1 adult, 1 child per interview. But then when we got there, we were invited to all come in as a family of 4. And I've been told that by my clients who have done it, that is what happened with them as well. It was a very short process. I will say it was a little nerve-wracking because we were individually interviewed. And as the mom, I wanted to start answering questions for my 8-year-old because that's who they started with. And I thought, this is going to be scary because Christian's a little bit of a live wire. We didn't really know what he was going to say when he was asked, like, where's your next international trip? Where are you going to? And he knew Croatia. And that was, a shocking response for the Customs and Border Patrol agent. He wasn't expecting that. But Christian couldn't remember when we were going. He thought sometime this summer, but he couldn't remember when. But he did know how many days we were going for. So he listens part of the time. And so I tried to, hop in there and answer some of the questions. And I was quickly told that they were not speaking to me at that moment, that I needed to wait my turn. So if you're the adult and you're going and they're asking your child questions, you kind of have to hold your tongue and wait till it's your turn and hope for the best. So if there's any preparation involved, make sure your children know, okay, we're going on this trip. Like if it's a surprise, they're going to need to know about it if you're wanting to get global entry for this trip. So don't keep it a surprise. They need to know where they're going, when they're going, how long they're going to be there, because these are questions they're going to be asked. Again, Christian was 8 and we started with him. They also asked Christian if he had ever been in any trouble with Customs and Border Patrol. And Christian said, no, sir, I've not. And they asked, has your dad been in trouble with Customs and Border Patrol? And Christian hesitated for a moment and kind of looked over. And then he said, no. He said, the agent said, no, we know that's not true. Something about an apple. And we all laughed because we knew exactly what he was referring to, because Logan was flagged when we were coming home from Amsterdam and we were going through customs in Atlanta when Christian was 8 months old, because he had had an apple on the plane that we had taken from our apartment that we were staying in Amsterdam. And he was teething, and so he had 2 apples. One he ate on the plane, which was perfectly fine, but it was not okay because remember, you're not supposed to have fruit, seeds, vegetables. Sometimes as a parent, you forget these things because you're like, this is food. I could have packaged applesauce and it's okay, but I couldn't have an actual fresh apple because it has seeds in it, and so that's a violation. And so that is on Logan's permanent record with Customs and Border Patrol. Like I told you guys before, when, things that you should know, what you should bring into the country, what you should not. That is one of those things, especially if you have kids, just be very careful about any food. I also once had to throw away an entire bottle of olive oil because I wasn't thinking of the liquid allowance of my bottle of olive oil from Italy. And I watched it be thrown away right in front of me in Spain by a TSA agent. So these are things that I'm sharing our experiences, and I know that a lot of you probably have some really fun, interesting experiences too, so you can learn from them. So they do know everything. So if you're wanting to apply for global entry, the point of this is to say you want to be honest and tell them, because we were upfront, we were honest. And, Logan had told all the countries that he had been to, but they actually had that on file. So he explained his side of the story, what happened, and they knew. And so we were all approved. We left there that day with our approvals, and we took our pictures. And a few weeks later in the mail, we now have our global entry cards. So it was really exciting for us because now we have TSA PreCheck and Global Entry. Was it a little intimidating, the process? As you could see from me walking you through it, I thought it was, and I travel all the time. Do I think it was worth it? Now that it's done, I mean, I'm really glad. I wish I had done it years ago. Now, when it comes to renewing, because every 5 years you do need to renew, it may be where we can simply just renew and they'll, ask for a new picture, or we send in a new picture, or maybe they'll keep that same picture. I'll have to find out. I think maybe we have to submit a new picture. But when it comes to renewal, it may be automatic and we just receive a new card in the mail after we complete the renewal form, or it could be that we have to go through the process again with the interview and do it again. They said that sometimes it's at random, or if something on the application, merits they want a conversation with you and an agent, then that can happen. It can be that one of us, like I am automatically approved and Logan has to go back for an interview. So there's no necessarily guarantee that one or all of us will have the same renewal process, but I'll be sure to keep you updated on that in 5 years. So if you have Global Entry and have some experiences you would like to share, or TSA PreCheck, then we'd love for you to share those experiences with us on our Facebook group, Heather and Logan Tate Whimsical Destinations. That's all the time we have for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Trusted Traveler Programs episode of our podcast, Talk Travel with Heather Tate. Wherever you're going this week, whatever you're doing, make life a great adventure. Life is short. Take the trip. Make those memories. You won't regret it.
This show is made possible by JC Media, LLC in Ripley, Mississippi. JC Media owns the Shark 102.3 Classic Rock FM radio station where the show is hosted, and Sun Bear Recording Studio where the interviews are recorded. We need your feedback and support. If you listen to the podcast on a player like iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Amazon Music, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That email is theshark1023@gmail.com. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite app or stream episodes online at shark1023.com/podcasts. Today's episode was produced by Melinda Marsalis. It was edited by Rick Williams and engineered by Chris Marsalis. The podcast technician is Joyce Grady.